mind with an open one. Try not to become a man of success, but rather try to become a man of value. This quote was told by Albert Einstein. According to this quote, you should not always aim success alone. You should also try to learn the values of human life. Life is not always smooth. We come across various situations in our life. We should learn to handle each and every situation in our life. Students, today we are going to know how a stranger handles a different situation. Just think of your children. You are walking through a forest during the night time. Nobody comes with you. You are alone. That place is filled with darkness. Suddenly, you hear a mysterious sound. Now, children, listen the mysterious sound. Oh, what a horrible sound it is. I am getting scared, children. Of course, you would also be scared on hearing this sound. Students, what will you do in this situation? You are all very brave and courageous. I hope you would overcome fear and act according to that situation. We should not lose hope and confidence in any situation. Now, let us see a stranger who had faced many mysterious situations in this poem. The Listeners. This is the title of the poem that we are going to see today. This poem was written by Walter de la Mare. Walter de la Mare was an English poet. He was also a short story writer and a novelist. He was best known for the children literature. He published The Listeners in 1912. This poem reflects the poet's fascination with mystery and supernatural elements. The poem tells the story of an unnamed traveler approaching an abandoned house in a forest. Okay, children. Now I am going to read the poem. Just listen to me. There are many new words in this poem. So, children, listen carefully. The Listeners. Is there anybody there? Said the traveler, knocking on the moonlit door. And his horse, in the silence, champed the grasses of the forest ferny floor. And a bird flew up out of the turret above the traveler's head and smote upon the door again a second time. Is there anybody there? He said. But no one descended to the traveler. No head from the leaf-fringed sill leaned over and looked into his grey eyes, where he stood perplexed and still. But only a host of phantom listeners that dwell in the lone house then stood listening in the quiet of moonlight to that voice from the word of man. Stood thronging the faint moonbeams on the door stair that goes down to the empty hall, hearkening in an air stirred and shaken by lonely travel's call. Walter de la Mare. The Listeners. Is there anybody there? Said the traveler, knocking on the moonlit door. And his horse, in the silence, champed the grasses of the forest ferny floor, and a bird flew up out of the turret above the traveler's head and smote upon the door again a second time. Is there anybody there? He said, but no one descended to the traveler. No head from the leaf-fringed sill leaned over, looked into his grey eyes, leaned over and looked into his grey eyes, where he stood perplexed and still. But only a host of phantom listeners that dwell in the lone house then stood listening in the quiet of moonlight to that voice from the word of men, stood thronging the faint moonbeams on the dark stair that goes down to the empty hall, hearkening in an air stirred and shaken, hearkening in an air stirred and shaken by lonely travelers' call. Walter de la Mare. Children, now I read the poem second time. Listen carefully, the listeners. Is there anybody there? Said the traveler, knocking on the moonlit door, and his horse in the silence champed the grasses of the forest ferny floor, and a bird flew up out of the turret above the traveler's head and smote upon the door again a second time. Is there anybody there? He said, but no one descended to the traveler. No head from the leaf-fringed sill leaned over and looked into his grey eyes, where he stood perplexed and still, but only a host of phantom listeners that dwelt in the lone house then stood listening in the quiet of moonlight to that voice from the word of man, stood thronging the faint moonbeams on the dark stair that goes down to the empty hall, hearkening in an air stirred and shaken by lonely travelers' call. Walter de la Mare. Fine. I think you would have listened to the poem carefully, children. You would come across many new situations, many new words in this poem. Don't worry, I will explain. Now, let us see how the traveler experienced a mysterious situation in the forest. Children, do you like traveling? Yes, we all like traveling. One day, a traveler was making a journey through a forest. He was traveling alone through a forest. There, he came across an abandoned house. The doors of the house were closed. The traveler knocked the door of the house in moonlight. He asked if there was anyone inside the house. The traveler's horse was grazing in the quiet forest while the traveler waited for the response. Suddenly, a bird flew out of the turret on the house and flew it above the traveler's head. Even then, the traveler didn't get any response from inside. So, he knocked the door again with more force and repeated the same question, is there anybody there? But there was no reply from the house. No one even leaned out of the windowsill, which was leaf-fringed. The stranger stood there puzzled. The poet also adds that no one leaned over and looked into the grey eyes. The poet also adds that no one leaned over and looked into his grey eyes. The stranger stood perplexed and still. The stranger stood perplexed and still. Perplexed means confused. He was in a confused situation. Children, now the poet narrates the inner side of the house. There was only a house of phantom listeners in the house. There was only a host of phantom listeners inside the house. Do you know the meaning of phantom? That means the spirit of dead person. Usually we say ghost. Do you know ghost? They dwelt alone in the house. Then they stood listening the human voice. The faint moonbeams crowded around the staircase as the quiet atmosphere in the empty house was disturbed by the traveler's lonely voice. The poem ends here in our text, children, but the original poem has 36 lines. Now, we are going to discuss the new words in this poem. Okay, children? The first word is champed. The meaning of champ is bit and chew upon noisily. The example sentence for this word, the horse champed the grasses. Okay, we will move to the second word, ferny. Ferny consisting of flowerless plants. Ferns are flowerless plants. The poet uses the word ferny because that is a place in the forest full of ferns. Example sentence is, the ferny forest always looks green. And then the third word is turret. A small tower that projects from the wall of a building. A bird flew out of the turret is the example sentence for this word. Then we move to the fourth word, smout. The meaning of smout is knocked loudly. Strike with a weapon or hand. Sentence is, the traveler smote upon the door. And then the next word is sill. The meaning of sill is a horizontal piece of a timber beneath a window or a door. The example sentence is, no one looked through the leaf-fringed sill. Do you know the meaning fringe? That means edge. And then the sixth word is perplexed. Perplexed means confused. The example sentence is, the stranger looked perplexed. The stranger stood perplexed. And then the seventh word is phantom. Phantom, the spirit of a dead person. Example sentence is, the phantoms were listening at the stranger. And then the next word is hearkening. Hearkening means listening attentively. Listening attentively. Do you know how to listen? Listening attentively. The phantoms were hearkening at the moonlight door. The phantoms were hearkening at the moonlight door. And then the last and final word is thronging. That means crowding. Example sentence is, the moonbeams were thronging the strangers. The moonbeams were thronging the strangers. The moonbeams were thronging the strangers. That is the last word in this glossary session. Okay, children, now we are going to see the poetic devices used in this poem. Alliteration. Children, the repetition of consonant sounds within close proximity, usually in consecutive words within the same line, is called alliteration. Children, now we are going to see the poetic device used in the poem. Alliteration. Children, the repetition of consonant sounds within close proximity, usually in consecutive words within the same line, is called alliteration. For example, let us see the fourth line of the poem, forest ferny floor. The consonant sound F, the consonant sound if is repeated here in the same sentence and hence they are alliterated. Let us see the 11th line of the poem. Children, stood perplexed and still. Here the consonant sound S is repeated in the words stood and still. Likewise, children, try to find some more alliterated words in the following lines of the poem. Likewise, children, try to find some more alliterated words in the following lines of the poem. Have you found out, children? Have you found out, children? Very good. You are right. Can you say? Okay, children. Smout and second in the sixth line are alliterated words. And also the words stirred and shaken in the 18th line are alliterated. Okay, children. I hope you have understood the poem well. Now I am going to ask some questions. The first question is, who is the speaker in this poem? Do you know this, children? Yeah, the answer is very correct. The poet Walter de la Mare is the speaker. The poet Walter de la Mare is the speaker in this poem. Okay, the next question is, what was the horse doing? What was the horse doing? Do you know the answer for this question, children? Yes, it's the right answer. It's the right answer. The horse was champing the grasses. The horse was champing the grasses. That's the answer for this question. Okay. The next question is, where did the traveler go? Where did the traveler go? Have you found the answer, children? Yeah, it's the right answer. The traveler went to the forest. The traveler went to the forest. That's the right answer for that question. Okay. The next question is, who were the listeners? Do you know it, children? Who were the listeners? Yeah, you are right. The phantoms were the listeners. The phantoms were the listeners in this poem. And then the last question is, where were the phantoms? Where were the phantoms? The phantoms were inside the abandoned house. The phantoms were inside the abandoned house. Yeah, you answer it very well. Okay, children, we will move to another question. If you in the place of the traveler, how would you have reacted in that situation? How would you react? How would you have reacted in that situation? Some of you would answer that you would leave the place immediately because of fear. Some of you would answer that you would leave the place immediately because of fear. Some of you would answer that you would wait for some more time. You would wait for some more time. And of course, children, if you are brave and courageous, you would have broken the door and entered the house. Isn't it? You would have broken the door and entered the house. Isn't it, children? Okay, children, the poem does not end here. In the original construct of the poem, in the original context of the poem, the traveler went back some more. The traveler went back after some minutes as he didn't get any response from the house. The traveler went back after some minutes as he didn't get any response from the house. The phantoms were just listening to the hoof sound of the horse. The hoof sound of the horse as the traveler was departing. That is the end of this poem. Do you enjoy it, children? Yes, you are all enjoying this poem. Okay, students, now I am going to give an activity. See the picture and find a line from the poem. Now, children, see the first picture on the screen. Now, children, keenly observe the picture on the screen. Okay, children, do you know what picture is it? Yeah, you are right. Do you find out the poem line? Yeah, it's right. And his horse in the silence champed the grasses. Okay, we will move to the second picture. Keenly observe this picture. Okay, children, have you found out the answer? Yeah, it's very good answer. And a bird flew up out of the turret. You are very right, children. You are all very intelligent. We will move to the third picture. Do you know what picture is it? Okay. Have you found the poem lines? Okay, you are right, children. No head from the leaf-fringed sill. No head from the leaf-fringed sill. Very good. I am very happy to hear the answers from you. Very nice of you, children. We will move to the next picture. Let's see the picture carefully. Have you found out the poem line? Yeah, you are right, children. Of the forest, ferny floor. Of the forest, ferny floor. That's the right answer, children. Shall we move to the next picture? Okay, children, get ready. Observe keenly. Okay. What picture is it? What is the poem line used in this picture? But only a host of phantom listeners. But only a host of phantom listeners. Do you enjoy the word phantom listeners? Okay, children, we will move to the next picture. Confused. Sorry, just you watch the picture only. Children, watch the picture. Okay. Have you found out the answer? Yeah, it's the right answer. Where he stood perplexed and still. Where he stood perplexed and still. You are right, children. Have you enjoyed this poem, children? Now I am going to explain this poem in Tamil. அடர்ந்த காடு, நிலா வெளிச்சம். ஒரு பயணி அவரோட குதிரையில பயணம் செஞ்சிட்டு இருக்கிறாரு. திடீர்னு யாரோ பின்னாடி அவரை பின்தொடர்ற மாதிரி அவரு உணர்றாரு. அவரோட பயத்துல என்ன பண்ணலான்னு யோசிக்கிறாரு. அப்ப போயிட்டே இருக்கும் பொழுது அங்க ஒரு பாழடைஞ்ச வீடை பார்க்கிறாரு. அந்த பாழடைஞ்ச வீடு நிலா வெளிச்சத்துல அந்த கதவு தெரியுது. போய் அதன் அருகில போய் கதவை தட்டுறாரு. யாராவது உள்ள இருக்கீங்களா? அங்க எந்த பதிலுமே அவருக்கு கிடைக்கல. என்ன பண்ணலான்னு அப்படியே கொஞ்ச நேரம் நின்றுட்டே இருக்கிறாரு. அப்போ அவரோட குதிரை அங்க அந்த அமைதியான சூழ்நிலையில புல் மேய்ஞ்சிட்டு இருக்குது. இவர் அப்படியே நின்று இருக்கிறாரு. கொஞ்ச நேரம் அப்படியே அதற்காக எந்த பதிலும் வரலன்னு சொல்லிட்டு அப்படியே யோசிக்கிறாரு. அப்புறம் மறுபடியும் ரொம்ப வேகமா கதவை தட்டுறாரு. யாராவது உள்ள இருக்கீங்களா? எந்த பதிலுமே அவருக்கு கிடைக்கல. அவருக்கு ரொம்ப குழப்பமாயிடுது. அப்படியே அமைதியா நின்று இருக்கிறாரு. ஆனா அந்த வீட்டுக்குள்ளார ஆவிகள் அந்த படியில புதிதாக கேட்கக்கூடிய இந்த மனிதனுடைய குரலை கேட்டு அப்படியே அமைதியா இருக்கு. எந்த பதிலுமே சொல்லல. என்னது அவங்கெல்லாம்? ஆவி. ஆவி எந்த பதிலுமே சொல்லல. இவர் மட்டும் வெளியே நின்றுட்டு கேட்டு பார்த்துட்டு அப்படியே நிக்கிறாரு. நின்றுட்டே இருக்கிறார். என்ன பண்றதுன்னே தெரியல. சரி, நம்ம அவ்வளவுதான், இங்க எந்த பதிலும் கிடைக்காது, நம்ம வேற இடத்துக்கு போவோம்னு சொல்லிட்டு அவரோட குதிரையை கிளப்பிக்கிட்டு அவர் போயிட்டே இருக்கிறார். இதுதான் இந்த போயமனுடைய தமிழாக்கம். Now you are all enjoying this poem, children. I conclude this session. Thank you very much.